Welcome back to the Become Your Own Muse podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We have Ren, the mindset coach and confidence mentor. She is a spicy little ball of energy. She's a fellow Scorpio like me. So I'm really excited to have her on the podcast today. Ren has coached over women over the past 3 years, helping them, as she says it, become cutthroat women and just to really help them just get confident, be in their power. Super excited to talk today. We're going to get into all the things. But starting off, I just wanted to know, like, you're 23, you're running your own business. How the heck did you get to where you are? How are you doing this? How did you get into this confidence coaching?
Oh my gosh, I love that. I think the thing I always run with whenever people ask me this is like, you just know, right? Like there's a point in your life where you go, okay, I'm meant for something bigger. And I personally believe like our trauma shapes us to have particular soul purposes. And I feel like this is mine. It's always been something I've wanted to do, but it starts off very surface level. Like I want to help people. I want to help people. I want to make money and I want to help people. That's the thing. And so I actually studied psychology for 2.5 years when I was like fresh out of fucking high school, and it was the complete opposite to what I believed was good for humans and what humans needed. And it was just very black and white, and everyone was sick. Everyone needed medication. And if you know me personally and you know my story, I'm very fucking much against that. And so it got to a point where you come into this level of consciousness and you go, there's got to be a different way. Like, what if we were giving these people hugs and kisses and a fucking journal? Like, let's start there. Hey, what if you went outside for once in your life? Like, so I started studying psychology, got to, I think, 19 and a half, 20, and I actually flew home and saw my family. And I remember this so fucking vividly. We were having meatballs for dinner and I just said to my parents, I was like, hey guys, like I'm dropping out of uni. And they were just kind of like, what the fuck? Like you fucked it, blah, blah. And I was just like, yeah, cool. And then I said to my dad, I want to run a business. This is what I want to do. And he said, okay, cool. Like go talk to your uncle. You know, your uncle's got so many years, so many business degrees, masters, all of the things. He's like the king of running a business. And so I went and spoke to my uncle and he basically said like, come to me with a business model, go do a business degree. We'll speak in 4 years. You will never get to where you want to go until you do these things. And I remember sitting there and just being like, fucking watch me. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, cool. And then I think the following week, I think I posted my first ever reel or like positive mindset. I think I started off as like a 21-year-old life coach. Do you know what I mean? On Instagram. And I posted my first ever post and people loved it. It was like the most surface level wishy-washy love and light bullshit I'd ever seen in my entire life, but it worked. And I started coaching my first client at $20 for 2.5 hours of my time. And she had just broken up with her boyfriend at the time. And yeah, it kind of just went from there. I just was like, I'm not going to let someone tell me that I cannot do this. And then I just made this commitment to myself that like, I've been through so much shit in my life. And at that point, I hadn't even been through I had been through half of it just without the self-awareness attached. Yeah. And I was like, there's no way I've been through all of this for nothing. So like, fuck it. Why not? Let's figure it out. And then I loved it. It brought me so much joy.
That's so impressive. It's so impressive because in my eyes, like you're so young to be that aware and that conscious at 19 years old. I think about where I was 19 years old and I was like puking in a bathroom toilet, being too drunk at the bars. I had no idea of this whole world. So that's honestly so impressive that you got to that place and you're doing what you're doing now at the age that you're at. And I love that you talk about the trauma that got us to where we are, because I think there's this moment, and tell me if this has happened to you, because this has happened to me, where there's this moment when you start going into this personal development world and you're like, you have this shame and guilt because you become aware of all the shit that you've been playing into, you become aware of all your behaviors, and you have this like shame of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been living like this. I can't believe I've been doing this or I've been thinking this way. But then you reach a certain point where you're like, all of this was a gift because now it feeds into my purpose, because you wouldn't be able to do or talk about the things that you talk about now without all the things that have happened to you, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a bit different for me though. I was obviously, we'll get into it, but like I had a pretty like fucking rough upbringing, and not like your most typical rough upbringing, but like girls been through shit. And I kind of went into the world after that like, no one can fucking touch me. I am invincible. Was I? I was this scared little girl from literally the age of 16 onwards, like probably 11 to be honest. And it was just like, no one can fuck with Ren. Like I had this bulletproof wall up, don't even fucking try it kind of energy. And so instead of shaming and feeling embarrassed, I just went balls to the wall with like, I'm untouchable. Anything you've said to me, I've already said to myself. like the ego was huge. It was like this massive dragon that's just like in the back, and she was always present. And so anything that I didn't like or people said about me, or like how I felt about, you know, what I had been through, it was just like, and all bad bitches go through things. It is what it is. You know, the shame and the embarrassment and the guilt and like the feminine rage didn't come, I want to say, till I was like 21. But from the point of like 16 onwards, I was just this egotistical bitch that like you couldn't fuck with me even if you tried. And then the result of that was reactivity. And so I 100% agree. Like we go through all these things and then you get to this point of self-awareness and you go, why have I been living this way? This hurts my heart. I can't believe I put myself through all these things, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, my thing was safety. And if you're going to compromise my safety, I'm going to kill you. That was the energy, you know? No, it was the complete opposite. And once I finally got the fuck over myself, to say the least, and stopped being this like reactive person, I realized like, oh yeah, there's a lot of sadness. And I think I was more hurt by my own personal actions and what I had allowed my life to look like. Granted, I was like 12 onwards, so you don't know any better. But I agree with you for sure.
Yeah. And what was it? You went through this tremendous growth over the past 2 years, or over a 2-year time frame. Was there a moment where you just like hit rock bottom where you're like, I need to change? Was there, it's just kind of a gradual growth, or how did you get into this? How did you start to shift away from that ego tendencies and that reactivity?
I think the thing that really did it for me is being in hospital. I was on my 5th surgery for my endometriosis, and it was like 2022 maybe. And I remember begging this doctor to cut me open, get rid of this thing. I'm tired. I'm done. I give up, all the things. I think I threatened to jump out the window. It was a whole bloody thing. And I just realized like, I cannot keep going like this. My life cannot look like this. Like I was tired. I was very tired and I was very sick of my shit. And I then literally walked into the bathroom in the hospital room and said to myself in the mirror, get your shit together, because this is not normal. We're not doing this anymore. Like, can do this. And then 2 days later I walked out after being in hospital for 8 days. God knows how many drugs were pumped into me. It was absolutely fucked. And then I just decided like enough is enough. And that's when everything changed. I dumped my boyfriend at the time. I changed my whole friend group. I changed my personal looks. I almost just gave myself permission to stop playing into my shit, because we all love it. We love a pity party. Poor me. Life is so hard. Oh my God. It's like, take some responsibility. You know, I worked very hard for a long time when I was younger to make sure I was always like safe and like had this wall up, and you just get tired of it. Like, actually, no, I'm a big fucking baby and I need to be held and I want a different life. But for me, that turning point is looking in the mirror at the hospital and just being like, get your shit together, because otherwise your life is going to look very different. And I was like in a year relationship at that point. You know, I was like, I'd been told by 4 doctors that I needed to have children in the next year or so, or like that was it. You're riddled with endo, like this is your life now. And I was like, I don't want that. Surely there's something else. And I think I just got sick of my shit, went balls to the wall, and now here we are. It was a fucking great.
I love that. And you've told me like, and you cured yourself from that endometriosis diagnosis, right?
Yeah. It was fucking crazy.
Like, that's wild.
Thank you. I don't know what the turning point was for me. I think like when you go into it, and like if anyone is in the same scenario, like you get to a point where you don't know anything. Like my first diagnosis 13. My first hospital visit was 12. I don't know shit. Like self-awareness, we don't know her. So you believe everything that you read and you believe everything of what people tell you. And doctors have the number one say. And you haven't even gone through fucking puberty yet. So like, what do you know? Right. And so that was my story for a long time. And that's what I ran with. And then it got to a point where doctors were just kind of like, you're fine. Everything's good. Don't worry about it. That's what happens. You just get periods. And I remember turning to my mum and just being like, if you don't vouch for me, I will. And she supported me through the whole thing. And we had just decided, like, I think it was after my 6th surgery, and they refused the last one. And I was like, okay, do I want to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life? Do I want to be taking 4 painkillers every day to get out of bed at 22? No, absolutely not. And so I just decided differently. I was like, what do I need to do? And then I started reading books, and I started learning about things like managing your own pain, how to heal your body, Joe Dispenza, you know, Catalyst, The Secret, all of those things. And I realized like I have a full opportunity here to live a different life. You know, like I have family members who have endo, they're bedridden.
Mm-hmm.
I know girls that have rolled over and had children because one doctor told them to. I went to 4 different specialists. Like I was just so sick of it. And I thought like, what is this? Like, what is this thing for me? Then I started getting into understanding the body and how trauma shows up in the body, how your emotions will always give you a physical symptom. Okay, cool. Endometriosis, from my understanding, is frustration, resentment, and anger in the body, mainly stored in the hips and the uterus. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start working through my anger and my resentment. Where does that come from? So we go to anger management, and then we hire coaches, and then we go to therapy. And then we just actually start to feel all of that resentment and all that frustration. And I actually like give myself permission to let that go for the first time since I was like literally 9 years old. Things start to shift and you start to heal your body naturally, but you have to be able to like hold yourself in that shit. And for some reason, my spirit guides just gave me that. They gave me the strength to do that. And it's just been a process ever since. And now that's one of the strongest relationships that I've built, is like listening to my body in terms of the physical symptom that presents itself. It's so important.
Yeah. Wow, that's so inspirational. It's so crazy. And I mean, being able to advocate for yourself, that the power that comes with that was when you were so young. And how is that ability to be able to advocate for yourself and be like, hey, look, I did this, I spoke up for myself, and now look where I am. How has that showed up now in your life and in the way that you coach your clients?
Oh, I love that question. I think for me, it's just you are your number one support system. No one else cares. And this is the thing I learned. Like, people tell you they care, you know, people want to help you, but at the same time, like, the only person who has ever vouched for me strong enough is me. And I believe too, like going through this experience, literally from the age of like fucking 9 years old, you learn what your body needs. And what I've learned is if I disrespect myself after going through that for 10 fucking years, like that's my own fucking shit to deal with. You know, so what I teach my clients is like, have your support systems, have your people, have your partner, have your parents. But like, fuck me, if you're not doing the work for yourself to be better for yourself, for your inner child, for that person that needed you when you were like 8 years old, who are you doing it for? And I'm so passionate about that because for so many years, even afterwards, I disrespected my body like it was someone else's. Like it was just this fun and games thing. I had learned all of this shit. And then, you know, it's like that integration point. You reach this initiation and it's like, cool, you've learned all these things. Are you going to follow it through? And then again, you get sick of your shit. But my thing is like teaching women to be your number one advocate, which means showing up in an energy that people don't fucking like. Don't cross me. Don't try me because I've done it. And I think women need to give themselves that permission to be seen as like that raging fucking bitch, to advocate for yourself. We've grown up in a society where like you roll over, you conform. My partner needs this, my best friend needs that. I have to help my mum through her trauma. What happens to me though? What happens to little me? So that's why
like we bend over backwards for everyone else, and the moment it's time for us to bend over backwards for ourselves, we're the first one to be like, nope, I'll put myself to the side burner.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, at a time that served a purpose, that keeps you safe. It's good. It's what you know. It's your conditioned paradigm, but like you know better now, you know. And so for me, like a lot of doing the work was actually just being okay to say out loud to everyone, hey, don't fuck with Ren. Because I put myself through shit. And if you believe that you're going to be the person to try and fuck with that relationship, absolutely not.
So let's talk about that and just how the people in your life responded to you stepping into that version of you, because I imagine there has to be people who did not like your growth and were like, you know, obviously when you grow and you start having boundaries and you start having standards, you become a mirror for other people where they lack those in their own life, and then they project onto you of, I'm not able to do this, so I'm going to take out my frustration onto you. So let's talk about that and what it was like to have the people closest to you. I'm sure you had some friendship breakups, maybe even family breakups. And then did you have a group of people who kind of elevated to meet you where you were at? And what was that whole process like?
I love that question. I think the thing that I always ran with is like Ren had always been a reactive kid and we had no idea why. Oh, she's just 13. She's just going through it. She's just a fucking bitch. It just is what it is, right? And like mums always talk about that. It's like your kids in like the terrible twos, but then you get to like puberty and then you're just like this raging fucking dragon, right? So it was very normal for me to be reactive to the extent of like losing my shit because I didn't know any better. And so what I realized very quickly is I now know better, but I didn't know how to regulate that. So I actually had to sit down with my parents and be like, right, The reason I am a raging bitch is because I needed you at this point and you weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
And this happened to me when I was younger, and you don't actually know the full extent. And this relationship causes this, and I need you to say sorry. And that conversation for me was like permission, because if my parents can see me in my shit, and like ask my mom, like this was a fucked conversation, but if my parents can see me in my shit, in my truth, and be like, tell me you're sorry, like I need that from you, and there was no shame and there was pure acceptance. To me it was like, okay, cool, nothing else will hurt me than my parents not accepting me as how I am, right? So you get into friendships, you get into relationships, and it kind of follows the same thing. So I happily cut off people, happily. It was like, you don't do what I need you to do. And a lot of people saw that as like this very egotistical, brutal, cutthroat approach. But at the same time, like I'm looking for safety. I'm looking for someone to see me in my shit. You know, I'm not this love and light girly. I have been through shit. And if you cannot hold space for that, if or when it comes up, regardless of how much work I've done, then I'm never going to feel safe with you, right? And what I found is like, yes, I had learned all these things and I was happy to share that with my family, and I was happy to be reactive and then learn how to respond and do all the work. But then it would come to certain people and I put this mask up. Oh, I don't feel anything. And that's when I realized like I'm actually not being myself. So yeah, I cut off a lot of people. I had one of my best friends at the time tell me to my face, you're too brutal and I can't deal with you. That fucking hurts. And then you've got to sit with the fact that you are too brutal. People actually don't like hearing the truth. People don't want your opinion all the time. And that's so perfect. And that's so fine. But for me to be my most authentic self and actually be seen in all my shit, which I believe is what confidence is, I have to find people who are happy to see me in my shit. Otherwise, next time you complain about your boyfriend to me and I sit there and I want to tell you that you're wasting your fucking time and you deserve better, I'm not going to say it. And I'm going to hold it back. And then I'm going to feel like I'm disrespecting myself and I'm not speaking my truth and I'm not being authentic and I'm not honoring my needs, which I spent 10 years repairing. So for me, it's not like a, what do I choose? It's like you have no other option, Ren. So yeah. I cut
because
off
it's like it's hard in moments like that because you have the friendships that don't welcome that tell you you're too brutal, you're too this. I've had, you know, friends tell me you're too cocky, things like that. And it's easy to get sucked back into the, am I, like, you're right, maybe I should change myself to be this. But then you're going to have the person that says you're too passive, you're not blunt enough. And then you're like, oh, maybe I should change to be this. So you're always kind of changing for other people. So it sounds like your why of what you just explained is what kept you grounded, of not falling back into this persona that other people wanted you to be because it fit their mold of how they perceived you.
Yeah. And it's sort of about controlling the whole thing and being like this egotistical bitch that's like always fucking saying her opinion and Ren's always right. It's just like, this is my truth. And if you don't like it, babe, that's so fine. I actually still owe it to myself to say, you sit with that. I'll sit with the fact that I may have hurt your feelings, and that's so perfect and totally fine. And I will give you grace, and that's so fine. But if I don't speak up when my heart skips a beat, I'm disrespecting myself. And I have spent a fucking decade learning how to not do that anymore. So for me, it's like, it's a non-negotiable. And that means, I lost so many friendships, but I also gained some really beautiful people in my life. Granted, very small circle, who are more than happy to see me in my shit. You know, my current relationship, I literally said to him, before we get into this, I just want to let you know that I am a fucking fiery bitch and I will not turn that down. I will hold compassion and grace and I will respond instead of react. But that is who I am, like, to my core. Like, I am a Scorpio. Deal with it. Can you hold me in my good and my bad and in my ugly? Because I'll do the same for you.
Yeah, I love that.
Because otherwise you put on this mask and then you pretend. And then what I found is then you perform. And I became this chronic walking people pleaser. When in reality, some people just needed a good fucking slap in the face.
Yeah. And then you look around and you're like, who are all, like, I created all these people from this mask that I put on. And then, like, now I'm surrounded by all these people. And there was a point in my life where I did that. And I realized if I was actually my true self, these people probably wouldn't even accept me. So now I'm just really friends with people who don't even accept me. So what the fuck did I even get myself into at this point? Exactly. Yeah. So it's having that brutal honesty and authenticity.
Exactly.
So I'd love to hear your opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on this, because this is something I talk about. Do you think that people nowadays are too soft, too sensitive? Like, why is it that people just have a hard time hearing the blunt and honest truth?
Yeah, because it hurts your ego. Oh, yeah. It still hurts mine.
Yeah.
You know, I have a coach who's so fucking honest with me, so honest. And I have to sit there and be like, yeah. But you have to hear it. And I think if you want to become your most authentic self and your most confident self, you can't just be right all the time. You can't just be this perfect fucking character that you've built so that people love and accept you, because it's fake. And then you go through your whole life, like you say, putting this mask on, performing for these idiots, when in reality, you probably wouldn't even be friends with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to take responsibility for that and go, cool, what am I doing to contribute to the lack of depth in these friendships and these relationships and these families? I'm not being myself. Okay, cool. In turn, me being myself means pissing some people off. Now I've got to learn to sit with that because that still hurts. It still hurts. When people are like, oh, that was really fucking intense, friend. That was really brutal. I still have to go, okay, but that's my authentic self. And I'm doing that with love and compassion. Am I okay with that? Am I okay being seen in that? Okay, I am. Cool. And then I can keep going. But yes, people are too sensitive because they don't like their ego to be bruised because we want to be loved and accepted and heard and respected. But what people don't realize, I truly don't believe we get to this point until we actually see ourselves in the mirror. It's like you have problems and you have to take responsibility for those problems. And once you accept that those are actually just parts of you, and that's so perfect and that's so totally fine, then you'll be okay with people being, disrespectful to you or saying shit a particular way, or hurting your ego or hurting your heart. Like once I accepted those things, okay, yeah, I am brutal. Yeah. 100%. Hand on heart, I lied to myself for years. I'm this blunt, brutal, direct person with my clients, but it came to talking about my sex life and my relationship. Ooh, yeah, it takes time. I think you have to feel comfortable in one element first. For me, that was with other people because my ego wasn't being bruised. I was just giving the directness. I was just giving the blunt information. But then I had to look in the mirror and go you're not even speaking your fucking truth, babe. So let's start there, and then you have to sit with the uncomfortable feelings of all of that. It's just this really beautiful thing. It's all part of the journey. But I think a lot of us lie to ourselves about the work we're doing or how far we have integrated into something, or how much something bothers us. And I believe the women who have this mask up have it down a little bit for other people. But if you looked in the mirror, that's going to hurt. And that really hurt me. I'm telling my clients at the time, hey, speak your truth. Hey, stop people pleasing. Tell this bitch, am I doing that? No. And once you sit with that and you come to terms with that and you accept that you're lying to yourself in that particular environment with that person, then you have this opportunity to go and fix that. And so once I finally started integrating things into my actual personal life, I genuinely felt that shift. If someone calls me a bitch now, I actually don't care. If I have to cut off a friendship because it doesn't serve my personal values and standards, I actually don't care because that's what is important to me. That's what I need. Does it hurt my heart? Yeah. But it's about you. And I think people take that in a really selfish element and they go, well, it's about everyone else. But at the end of the day, you are all that you have. And if everyone in your life just stopped being your support system, can you sit with yourself in front of the mirror and be okay as being seen as your deepest, darkest fears, your deepest, darkest shadows? It's now my tagline. Ren's a cutthroat bitch. Period. That's it. It took years to get there.
I read an old post of yours when I was stalking your Instagram account, and it said something along the lines of you reflecting back on an old post you had made or an old coaching style that you used to have where you had this very love and light type of coaching, and you would tell people to say affirmations or think a certain way or do a certain thing, but you were like, I actually wasn't doing that in the background myself. And I think we've all, we all start at this point when we're coaching where we like to preach a lot and we like to tell our clients what we're doing, but behind the scenes it's we're actually not doing that thing ourselves. And it's really cool to witness the evolution as someone who is a coach or a mentor to fully step into that embodiment of actually doing the things that you are preaching to your clients, actually doing the work that you tell your clients to do. So how has you going from the place you were now or were then to the place you are now with fully stepping into the embodiment of the work that you teach impacted you and your clients' lives?
As it shifted, my clients actually get results. I actually make money. I have fantastic client retention. I think I had to get over myself very quickly. Hey, I'm preaching this cut. Yeah. Oh, imagine being your authentic self. I was preaching all of this shit online, and then my clients would come to me. They'd be like, I texted my ex again. I'm like, that's okay, baby. Don't worry about it. Rin! Say it with your chest. So I think for me, I just had to learn to be seen as the person that I truly am, not the watered down version, not the person that's cutthroat here, but love and light here. I'm so direct with my clients now that if someone listens to those voice recordings, they'll be like, what the fuck? right? But it works and it gets results because the people who lie to themselves constantly don't have the awareness, don't have the emotional capacity to hear that truth and do something with it. I have done that shit with myself. So now the clients I attract are people who want that, you know? And I learned very quickly it doesn't have to be this like screaming in your face, you're such a failure, this is what you did wrong. It's actually like, hey, you knew better, but you still fucked around with that. Tell me why. Whereas other people in my life would be like, that's okay. We all make mistakes. It's like, when is someone going to call me out for my shit? And so I think like that transition from that love and light was like, I actually wasn't that person. I was preaching this false identity online that I was like the 60s housewife and had it all together in a loving relationship. And it's like, it wasn't that. It was the total opposite. You know, I was having fights with my ex most fucking nights. I was struggling to be heard in my relationship. I was struggling to talk about how I felt. But online, I'm like this perfect fucking happy-go-lucky family, and it's not true for me. So, okay, what do I need? How do I get out of that? What does that look like? And I think naturally that just evolved. But like we were talking about with the seduction thing before we got filming, that was also not me. I over-sexualized myself for a long fucking time. Again, it's a mask. Ren's confident. She's cutthroat. She's sexy. All the things. Yeah, but like it doesn't have to be like a whole branding thing that you are. Like you can just be all of those elements and they come up when they need to. But in truth of it, I hated making that content. But because it works and we're people pleasers and we have been performing for so long, and it also took me so far away from what I once was, which was like this lover girl. So like let's do a full 360 into this man-eating, hungry, seductive queen, when like in reality I wasn't doing any of that. It just came naturally because it's who I am authentically. And so once you just figure out like who you actually are to a T and you're okay with that, everything else improves. My clients love that.
I love your very blunt, straightforward, tell it how it is, like tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear type of approach. I personally, that's my coaching style as well, where I'm not all rainbows and butterflies. Like I'm going to tell you and call you out when you're on your bullshit, right? And I think it's a really effective way because there is so much love and light and like, good for you. It's okay. Like you're doing your best versus someone who's going to come in and be like, I think you could have done better there, right? And I think it's really cool because I also respond really well to being mentored by this. My own mentor teaches in a very, very similar style where she's very honest, she's very authentic, she's very straight to the point. She'll call me on my bullshit. I think what's so effective about operating this way and coaching people in this way and hiring someone who coaches in this style is when you start to hear your coach or your mentor talk to you in this way, you then start to, outside of talking to them, you're in your day-to-day life and you go to do something and you hear your own voice almost as if it's in their voice saying like, are you sure you want to do that? Like I know recently I can't remember exactly what I was working on, but I was working on something and I was just like wasting time doing something. And I was like maybe checking my Instagram, and then I was looking at an email, and then I was like writing a piece of content. I was kind of all over the place. And in my head, because I heard my mentor say this, but it was in my own voice too, because I've started to adapt to this mentality of you are wasting your time right now. Do you respect yourself right now to be wasting your time? Your time is so precious. Like, let's get back on track. Let's focus, right? So it's like you start to be able to call yourself out on your own bullshit in the same way that your mentor would, just because you're around the person, you're surrounding yourself in that environment and their mindsets and their coaching style and that no bullshit approach. And it's really cool because you get to start doing that on your own, and you start to shift the way that you have that internal dialogue with yourself, where you're starting to become your own mentor and you're starting to coach yourself and you're starting to call yourself out on your own bullshit. And all of a sudden, suddenly, like you're starting to grow and you're starting to change really rapidly because you're able to do that.
100%. And like I have catchphrases in my coaching that clients from 2 years ago will remember. Pick a bigger fucking problem, know better, do better, right? And like my clients will text me every week and be like, I had you in my head today, I went to go do this, and then I had you like, don't fucking do it. And I love it. It's so important. And I agree. I think the approach is cutthroat and it is direct, but that's what works for me because humans are coddled their whole life. Bubble wrap that shit. My mum used to soothe me in every fucking experience I had. So it's like, oh, well, that obviously isn't getting me the result that I'm looking for. So maybe I should try something different. Hey, what if I didn't lick my own ass 24/7? What if I looked in the mirror and took accountability for the shit that I play into? Because at the end of the day, I can't blame the planet for my lack of communication with X, Y, and Z. Like, take some responsibility and you'll see your life genuinely change. Because I could have just walked around for the rest of my life being like, yeah, I'm reactive. I lose my shit. I start fights. It is what it is. I have trauma. This is why I'm like this. And then ruined every relationship I walked to, had no friendships that were beneficial, and had no idea how to regulate my nervous system. I could have done that. I could have just stuck with that paradigm that worked for so long. And then my life could have just been completely different. Or I could get the fuck out of my way, take responsibility for the shit that I create, the problems that I genuinely create, and then have genuine solutions for those. And I think that's where people go wrong. It's like, poor me. It's not me. It's the world. No, babe, it's you. We can't keep blaming everything out of our external control for our internal structures. I call bullshit. And everyone does it. And I catch myself sometimes doing it as well. Like Mercury's in retrograde. I was like, oh, I'm struggling to communicate this with my partner today. Oh, maybe it's the planets. Be so fucking for real. Just go and say your truth and sit with the uncomfortable feeling that comes up and let that be okay.
I think what's funny too along this process is you will think that you have moved past something. You're like, oh, I'm not reactive anymore. Oh, I'm not defensive anymore. Oh, I'm not this anymore. But then you'll meet someone or you'll get in a relationship with someone, whether it's a friend or a romantic relationship, and they will all of a sudden challenge you to a whole nother level and like reactivate your ego. And you're like, what the fuck? I thought I was past this already. I thought that I was not someone who was reactive, not someone who's defensive. I know I've experienced this with my own husband, where he's the biggest mirror for me of the areas that I still need to improve on. And there's things that he brings out in me that I'm like, oh, I thought I moved past that already. So it's kind of cool because it's like, instead of you can have like a very negative approach towards this and a very shameful approach where you're like, oh my gosh, I thought I moved past this, but it's really cool to be able to witness it at a different level in a new relationship, in a different experience, a different situation with different people, and see where these parts of you come out that you're like, oh, there's still work that needs to be done here. Maybe it's just in a more evolved version, maybe it's just in a different type of situation, or maybe it's the same thing that's just coming up again and I just haven't completely moved past that.
All this, right? Because our ego likes to pick the easiest thing to move through. So I can sit here and say like, oh, I have fantastic communication with my clients. I have incredible communication with my parents. We talk openly about everything. But now I have to talk about the things that are really fucking me off in my relationship. And then all of a sudden, it's like this massive thing to deal with. And it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, I should be able to do this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it comes up and it comes out. It's like new level, new devil. And we hear this in the coaching space all the time, but it's so true. And I think what people forget is like that new level, new devil is an opportunity for you to actually be so far in that shit and then pull yourself out of it. It's not getting in there. You're always going to get in there. That's the thing I learned. It's not like you do the work, you integrate, and then it never comes up again. It's like, okay, what's my window of tolerance? What's my time frame? Because this came up 6 months ago and it took me a day to move through. What if it only takes me 6 hours today? What if it only takes me 2? What if I can just get it? Eventually, the things that we're stressing about will be so much easier, right? And it's just about shifting that perspective and being like, it's not a test. It's not oh, you've failed. It's like, show me, babe. You've done the work. Show me. Go talk about the most uncomfortable thing. Don't hide things from people. Be honest in your delivery. Be authentic in your energy. It doesn't have to be like this false sense of safety and like faking it till you make it all the time. But I agree. I truly believe, hand on heart, relationships, you want to know your shadows? Get in a solid, safe environment with a partner who triggers the fucking shit out of you. You will see your shit so fucking fast. And then again, it's like, do you want to grow? Or do you want to play into your old pattern? I screamed at my ex last time. Do I want to do that now? No. Instead, I'm going to pull out the whiteboard. I'm going to whiteboard and brainstorm how I feel, because that's what healthy relationships are. Like shift the paradigm. It doesn't have to always be that way, but yeah, I can't even imagine. Like, I think too, people either get into relationships and they see all their shadows, or they do the work by themselves. And I truly believe Scorpios, for whatever fucking reason, we get into relationships to work through our shit. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing. And it's also, for me, like getting into a relationship was like, okay, cool. How do I deal with my person's problems, conflict, without coaching them? How do I actually learn hold space for my person and their big emotions and actually match that standard that they're holding for me? Because he's not paying me. I fucking wish, but he's not. So it's like, okay, cool. How do we do this together instead of into old shit all the time? Because like, again, choose your thing. Do you want to play into cycle 1, or do you want to fucking make a whole different one? Like 2 years ago, I would never have pulled out a whiteboard mid-argument. A whiteboard? Hey, this is how I'm feeling. Hey, this is what you can do to support me. This is what I can do for myself. Are you crazy? Like, that's just not normal. But now it's normal. I've normalized it. That is actually what we do. And it's like, what?
I think another conversation that's really important too is when you start doing personal development work and you start growing, all of a sudden you just expect the people closest to you to be doing the work too. And if they're not, you start to get resentful, you start to get frustrated, and you just expect that because you're working on yourself and you're doing this journey, that all of a sudden everyone else should be doing it. And it's funny because I think the problem a lot of people have as to why when you go on personal development journeys, you start to cause friction in your relationship is because it almost creates this like egotistic power play where you think you're better than your partner because they're not doing the work. And then they also think, oh, you think you're better than me because you're doing this work. And it creates this like weird dynamic. And instead, what people need to do is they need to let their partner in on the work that they are doing. And another thing is, like you were talking about with the whiteboard situation, you have to be able to hold the awkwardness and the like crazy time. And what I mean by that is like, hey, I want to talk about my feelings. I'm going to get my whiteboard out and do it. Hey, I want to talk about my feelings. We're going to sit here for an hour. We're going to do it. And if you're not used to doing that in your relationship, your partner is going to look at you like a deer in headlights and be like, what are you talking about? Or you're being crazy or whatever. And you have to be able to hold the crazy over and over and over again until they start to themselves normalize that, hey, we are going to talk about our feelings. Hey, we are going to journal this. Hey, we are going to get our whiteboard out. Because all of a sudden it starts to become normal. You just have to hold the patience to allow them to meet you there, to allow them to get there, because you're letting them into your world. You're letting them into the work that you're doing. And you're having that patience to allow them to catch up, which a lot of people can't hold that patience and they get frustrated. And that's why a lot of resentment happens.
Yeah, because we see the hard thing, we see the blind spot, we see the shadow, and we fucking run. You just told me that you want a deep, intimate, committed relationship, Rihanna. So get your whiteboard, babe. Get your pen. Talk about how you feel. And it's so funny you said that because my partner literally did that a couple of weeks ago. I was like in my head about something and like my energy was off. And he was like, I'm coming over, we're going to talk about it. I was like, literally, fuck off. We're not talking about this. It's fine. I'm moving through it. Blah, blah, blah. I've talked to my coach. It's totally fine. Shows up at my door with the whiteboard. He goes, give me 20 minutes of your time. It was the best thing I needed. So important.
Here's a fun little question. What are some of your, or maybe one or two of your biggest insecurities that used to be an insecurity and now you're just like looking back on and you're like, that's so silly. Like, why was that an insecurity? Or you've just moved past it to the place where you can look back and be like, wow, that's really cool that I don't have that insecurity anymore.
Oh, there's two. The surface level one is dancing on my stories. I'm a good dancer. I've danced for 15 years. I fucking love that shit. I'll twerk in public, but then I would post it and someone would comment on it and I'd be like, oh my God. Now I'm like, that's a mirror for you, babe. Enjoy working through it. Because like life is supposed to be fun. And it's like, it's holding myself back to make other people feel comfortable. And it's like, why? What the fuck for? And then the deeper, meaningful part of that is conversations about sex. Being like so fucking dead honest and being like, right, the way you do this is actually terrible and I hate it. And the way that I do this is actually terrible and I don't like that. This is what I do like. I really like. Let's keep doing more of that. Like that conversation used to be such a thing for me. And I thought that that conversation was nothing because if you talk about sex, you're talking about sex. But there's a difference between like comprehending what your partner is saying and just hearing what they're saying. Actually, like starting from scratch. And this is what I didn't realize. It's like every relationship is different. And if you bring the same sexual energy, kinks, fantasies, desires, all those things into your new relationship, it's not with that person, babe. It's with this one. So you have to start again. But that conversation, I think I masked it with like, oh, it's just sex. And I love sex. But like it made me so fucking uncomfortable. And then again, my partner now brings out the whiteboard. You do this. You perform here. I can see you're not enjoying it, but you lied to me about this. Why? Let's talk about it. That conversation as a whole, I think is so fucking vital for women. And not just like, oh, I want to be tied up. It's like, I actually hate when you do this. And the reason I hate that is because X, and like, I don't enjoy this element of our sex. And can I show you how to do this better? Like, this is your person. And if you're in a long-term committed relationship, like this is your person. So like now sex is not a problem, you know? And I think women start with like learning to say no and like, hey, I actually don't want to have sex now, but it goes so much deeper than that. Because for me, what I figured out is like my sex life has a very fucking strong correlation to how I run the rest of my life. Because with my body, if I'm not having good quality sex that feels connective and supportive and passionate, my body's going to tell me that. I'm gonna get sick for 4 days. And then I have to sit with the fact that, oh, I should have communicated that. Fuck. Okay, next time, let's not get sick for 4 days. Let's actually talk about openly how we feel. And then sitting in the fact that that makes me uncomfortable. And that's actually okay. because I have to trust that my partner is able to hold that energy for me. And I'm so grateful I learned that at such a young age, because I know women in their 30s and 40s are still figuring this out. Like if I had this conversation with my mum, for example, it would be a whole different conversation. But like, this is what I have been blessed with learning over and over and over again. So it's like, great, let's honor that, because that's what I require. But that used to be something that was like huge for me. It's like, oh, just do it. What do you like?
And I know I talk about this a lot, where I think sex and money are both a huge mirror for the way that you show up in your life. If you are uncomfortable having conversations about sex with your partner, what you're desiring, things like that, I guarantee you that you're having a hard time with difficult conversations standing up for yourself, difficult conversations with client, difficult conversations with your boss, whatever it may be. With money, if you're disorganized with your money, if you feel stressed around your money, you're probably disorganized in other areas of your life, right? If you're afraid to look at your bank account after a long weekend of spending, again, holding that discomfort, you're not able to do it. You're probably not able to hold this uncomfortable or discomfort with conversations between other people. And I think, you know, I've had people who are business owners who are telling people online, like, advocate for yourself, stand up for yourself, and things like that. But then behind closed doors, they're not doing that in the bedroom. And it's like the two are not adding up. So I think if you look at your behaviors with regards to how you manage your money and your relationship with sex, with sexuality, with the way that you communicate around your sexual desires with your partner, that's going to reveal a lot of other areas of how you navigate your life, how comfortable you are with discomfort, how much you can advocate for yourself. And I think it's really telling. And I think that's a big area that people need to look at.
You're telling me my business wasn't performing and I wasn't making money because when it got to the bedroom, I just asked the dude I was sleeping with, hey, what do you like? Or you've watched this porn and that feels good for you? Sweet, I'll do that. I fucking hate doing it. You're telling me my clients were 1 foot in and 1 foot out? My friendships are 1 foot in, 1 foot out? Wonder where you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Do you know what I mean? I think the correlation is so important. But again, like that's an uncomfortable conversation to have. And I think we as women need to start normalizing that. I talk about my sex life with my friends in depth. I've also talked about my sex life with my friends and had someone tell me their sex life and me be like, hey, that's actually not okay. Like women don't have these conversations often enough. Just because you're having good sex and it's consensual doesn't mean it's safe and nurturing and supportive and all those beautiful things that we actually deserve. And I literally had a friend 2 years ago be like, hey, babe, I don't think this is a good sexual relationship for you. And then you're like, fuck, that's so interesting to know. But that for me was like chef's kiss. And women don't know. Like if your pH is being thrown off by someone you're having sex with, there is something that you are not talking about, period. Anytime a client comes to me and goes, XYZ, let's look at it, because it's not there like for shits and giggles. And I think, well, I know to be true in my life, that is the most important relationship. And once you understand that in full depth, everything else improves. Same with food, same with eating. You get it, all the things.
You talk a lot about routines and habits and how important those daily habits and routines are. So, what are some of your non negotiables that you have to do every day or maybe every week that you're like, no matter what, like, this is what I'm going to do to make sure that I feel safe in my body, that I feel good? And it's proving to me like I respect myself because these are the things that I'm doing no matter what.
I love that. I think the thing that is the most important for me now is like having a journal that allows me to check in. You can write what you're grateful for, and that's fucking magical. But like, where's your head at? And like, go deeper. It's a scale of 5 out of 10. What does that even fucking mean, babe? Because some mornings I wake up and I've had a bad dream and I've now got anxiety, and then I have a double shot coffee and then I go to boxing. Now my nervous system's in fight or flight all day. What can I do to like re-regulate that? Something I've started implementing as of like 2 weeks ago is like cold showers, like straight away, in and out, like no more hot showers, because that's actually what I need. And then other things like date nights every Friday, beach swims, reading before bed instead of scrolling my phone. But for me, like refining and understanding the basics allows you to be emotionally and physically equipped to deal with the other shit. Your problem isn't time management. It's deeper than that. The problem is that your friendships aren't just toxic. It's deeper than that. I have no time for myself. It's deeper than that, right? So my thing is, if I teach people those basics and we understand those and we then implement them and it becomes normal, it's like now I have capacity when I get on a call with Ren and we're talking about trauma or we're talking about my sex life and it's quite triggering for me, I now know that I can go away and do the 3 things in our toolbox to re-regulate. And then the next morning, I can carry on with my morning routine, which keeps me in the stable rhythm of not like losing the absolute plot. Because I would have coaches years ago and have no morning routine, no structures, no affirmation, no feminine embodiment practices. I wouldn't even fucking eat breakfast for God's sake. And then would be talking about my trauma. And then the next day I'd be in bed for 5 days. Whereas now it's like, okay, I have things set up in place to support me because I want to do the work. I want to move through these things, but I need to make sure that like my fundamentals, and that's why I call them non-negotiables, are solid. And people miss that. It's not about the fact you're doing it. It's not about the fact that you're working out every day. It's like, what is that doing for your body? What is that doing for your nervous system? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't go to the chiropractor because I enjoy being clicked. I go to the chiropractor so my nervous system can flow, so everything can move naturally. Like all these things we're doing aren't fun. I don't love going to the gym every day. I'm not like, fuck yeah, but I know it's so important because if I don't move my body every single day, I'm going to stick with my energy that's stuck in my body and it's not going to go anywhere. And I know better now. So for me, the refinement of your basics is crucial. I don't believe you can actually become integrated in your shit until you nail those things, period.
For the people listening, if they are someone who have a hard time sticking with habits, they do something for a little bit and then they fall off, or like they're not really sure what to be doing in their day-to-day or weekly routines, what would you recommend and what advice would you give them to get to a place where they have their own list of non-negotiables?
I think that I always tell clients is you pick 3 things. These are called your non-negotiables. You can have your 50-step morning routine, babe, and that can be perfect for you. But if you don't do those 3, so help me God. I have to make my bed every morning. Non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. I have to journal and I need 10 minutes of silence. Non-negotiable. If I decide not to go to boxing that day or I can't be fucked, reading 20 pages of my book or whatever it is, those 3 things are done. So to me, I'm still fulfilling that level of trust that I promised myself. And that's the thing. It's not about perfection, because it's unrealistic. If you've gone from never having a morning routine to now trying to do 20 fucking things, you're going to get overwhelmed. Your body doesn't know how to hold that. Your brain's like, so it's just like, okay, pick 3 things. And then I always say to my clients, like, if you don't do them, that's the consequences of your actions. Don't fucking come crying to me. Oh, I had a shit day at work. So, well, you didn't drink water, like you said. Your non-negotiable is drink a liter of water before you leave the house. You didn't do that, babe, so I can't help you. Do you know what I mean?
I think sometimes people try to go after the big things of like, I want to grow my business and I want to run the marathon and I want to like move up in this job, but I want to do, and they forget about like the fundamental foundational things. Like, are you getting sleep? Have you drinking enough water today? Like, are you scrolling? Just this like basic stuff. Are you eating healthy? That we just forget about and we skip over. And then we expect to have all the success with these larger and bigger things. And it's like, babe, you don't even have the foundations in place. Like, how do you expect to grow your business, to ask for that promotion, to do the big things in your life when behind the scenes, you're not even taking care of yourself from a very basic level?
And I think what people get lost in is your fundamentals are not the work. If you can't eat 3 meals a day and drink a liter of water, how are you going to move through the rest of it? I think that's where people have come complacent in their personal development work, and that's where they lie to themselves. I'm doing the work. No, babe, you're making your bed. Yeah. So you're sticking to a very basic routine that reinforces your self-trust. That's not doing the work. That is just being the person who says the thing that they're going to do and then fulfills that. And that's what I learned. I was like, no, you're not doing the work. You're actually priming your human for like the fucking basics. Water and food are the basics. 8 hours of sleep is the basics. Do you know what I mean? It's like we commend ourselves for like these very, very small things that should actually just become the normal. And that's where people get complacent and then they lie to themselves and then they don't meet themselves where they are truly at. And then they take on more than they can handle. And then that's where that imposter syndrome comes in. It's like, I don't feel good enough. It's like, well, you actually haven't done anything that you said you were going to do. And that's what I always, reiterate with clients. It's like, I'm not moving you through anything else until you can stick to a morning routine for 6 weeks.
I'm so grateful we got to talk today. I'm seriously so inspired by you. I just love your honesty, your authenticity. So to end this episode out, what is your mission? Like, why are you doing this work? Why were you put on this earth? Like, what is your purpose, your mission? Where do you see your business going?
I love that question. I think you know deep down that you're destined for greatness. My thing is to give women the permission to just be who they fucking are. The good, bad, and the ugly, to the point where like you are the source of your power. Like it's literally tattooed on my skin. It's so important to me because this is what I have spent so long building in myself. And I never want anyone ever to feel the way that I once felt. So whatever that looks like, however I can do that, make the most impact, because that lack of safety in your body and your nervous system and your heart is the hardest thing I think I've ever had to go through. And so it's like I never want anyone to feel that way. And if I can, I guess, mitigate the effects of that, then that is absolutely what I will do.
Ren, thank you so much for being on the podcast, for sharing your heart, for sharing your truth. You truly are an inspiration. I'm sure everyone that is listening to this agrees as well. Please tell everyone where they can reach you, how they can find you, and any last words.
Well, we are running my first ever retreat. It's called Unleashed. If you like what I talk about here, you're going to fucking love the retreat. This is happening in May and I'm so excited. Like, I think when you ask, like, what's the thing? Retreats, in-person events, all of the things. I just want to give women that permission slip. And like at Unleashed, that's where you can do that. I currently have a 30-day free challenge running to nail the basics. It's called Ren's 30-Day Hard. So you can also join that. We've got so many things, honestly. The best way to reach me is Rihanna Browning Coaching on Instagram.